Good evening. Welcome to the Trails Committee meeting on August 29th. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:33. We're going to do roll call. When I call your name, let me know you're here. Will Warren.
Here.
Satyendra Sharma.
Here.
Kat McKee. Here. Great. Let the minutes reflect that Sam Stivers is also visiting. Okay. So up first, we have the minutes that Satyendra drafted for the August 3rd and August 15th. Have you guys had an opportunity to review them, or would like me to pull them up so that you can see them?
Yeah. Nope.
Sati drafted them, so he's familiar with them.
No, they're fine.
Are you good? Okay.
Yep.
So do we want to, can someone make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
For August 3rd and August 15th?
Yes.
Great.
And I second it.
Seconded by Sati. Hold on, I'm just taking notes. Okay, great. And so let's do roll call. Will Warren.
Aye.
Satyendra Sharma.
Yes.
Kat McKee. Yes. So motion passes. Minutes approved. I'll submit them later tonight. Wonderful. Thank you both. Next up is a quick recap. So this is phase 1, Mass Trails Grant project update. So the fencing we talked last time is all set. We need to focus on signage next and the ADA aspect. We met, Will Warren and I were of the Trails Committee representing at the site walk we held on the 21st at 10 a.m. It was with the organization that did the ADA plan for town, which is I'm trying to remember the Center for, I was going to pull up in a minute, Center for Living and Working. So we met with them and that was a really good meeting. Bill Sines from the Southborough Public Access Committee joined us as well as representation from SPAC, and Will was also on the
Center
committee.
for Living and Working.
It's Center for Living and Working, and
Okay.
the Inc. Comment.
Did that cost us money to have them
It
there?
will. Yep. It's a paid meeting. It was a consultant meeting. And so he drafted a report, which I circulated to the committee. I can pull up in just a moment and we can go through it. The purpose of the site visit was to review the trail as it stands now, to identify any improvements, enhancements that we can make to enhance the accessibility aspect of the trail, including the parking. And so I think one of the most significant findings was the parking is good, but the consultant was concerned with the type of substrate used because it wasn't, it's not as stable because it is gravel, even though it's compacted, it's still a little slippery. So that, that needs to be addressed. And then we, one of the colleagues, one of the representations from the Center for Living and Working was Michael Kennedy. He's actually in a wheelchair, so he was experiencing the parking firsthand and the trail as a wheelchair user. So we really got his experience and his insight from that. So all in all, it was a good meeting. And so the objective was to come out of that with a report. And so I'm going to share screen so we can look at the report together. Okay, let me know when you see my screen.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so basically he did a little bit of background here, the description of the trail segment, and he gave some details about the parking requirements. So this should be helpful. He gave some signage examples. Yeah, so he's describing the surface materials here. Surface must also be stable, firm, slip resistant. So materials may include asphalt, concrete, or compacted stone, dust, or similar. So we have something similar. We don't have stone dust, but while there, we're talking about the opportunity to potentially pave those spots, and also to pave a small path from parking around the gate to connect with the paved road. So that was something we talked about. Now, one of the reasons we weren't using paved surface in that area was because of the runoff aspect, because it is on watershed property near the reservoir. We need to be concerned about that. So today, after our conversation this morning, which I'll go into later depth about the ADA meeting that was held this morning that I attended and Will was at, I talked to the conservation agent, Melissa Danza, about the potential of paving the spots, the car spots, the parking, and the impact it would have and how the Conservation Commission would view that and what steps we'd need to take if we wanted to go that route. And she thought that because it's a small surface, and if it is within the 20-foot buffer zone, which I don't actually think it is within the 20-foot buffer zone, because there is quite a bit of land between the reservoir and the road and the existing path now that may exceed 20 feet. But even if it is within the 20-foot buffer, she thought that because of it was a small surface area and they would provide a variance, perhaps provide a variance based on the benefit that the community and the user group would get from adding the ADA parking and creating an asphalt versus stone dust and stuff. And considering for the committee, whether we do asphalt or whether we do, one of the options he described was these kind of, I forget how he described it, it's kind of like an egg crate, like I'll use the word plastic without really knowing if it's made of plastic, but kind of these grid-like form that you put into the ground filled with grass that creates a very firm, stable ground, but it's more natural than asphalt. And that is and has that complies with ADA.
How wide and long is this portion where we are proposing to?
Yeah. How ask that one more time, please.
So what's the length or width of the section where we want to do the paving or
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. He may have put the specs in here. I don't. So what we have right now is room for a van and a car, but you could probably get 2 car spots and 1 van spot out of what we have now. And I don't have the exact spec, Sati, to share as far as what the current measurement is. But what he has here is he's included some requirements of what you need to have to meet the requirements or the criteria to meet the requirements. So anyway, so that was a good meeting, and we talked about what to do when the trail no longer meets accessibility criteria. So where the slope begins to exceed the maximum slope allowed. He talked about adding a sign there that, the accessible trail ends here, but you're welcome to continue on, and putting an interpretive sign, because the one view that you can see from this side is not accessible, after the slope. So folks might not be able to get up over the slope, but he had a great idea of like including a sign there, an interpretive sign, and having the different seasons represent, show the different seasons for that view. So the people who can't get up the hill will actually be able to see the pictures from that spot, which we thought was a good idea. And that's those without visual impairment, which is a whole nother discussion we'll talk about in a minute. So we talked about putting a bench at certain places for, rest spots and stuff like that along the trail. And so it was a good meeting, and we need to review the report in a little more detail, but I think it'll be really helpful for us to kind of take a look at this and see what we can do with our existing funding to make enhancements, and if we do need additional funding. Will, do you have anything to add after that meeting?
I spoke to the gentleman in the wheelchair, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, Michael Kennedy. Yeah.
Michael Kennedy, and he recommended that we should look at Mass Audubon stuff for some good ideas on signage, and also maybe, other issues about rails and things like that. So
Yes.
I think that would be something that we'd want to look at. I guess, the expert, both of the guys were maybe a little bit more encouraging about putting a rail up for people in wheelchairs to use, or for people who are using, canes or something.
That came up today too, and I would like to explore that option, Will, for that
Okay.
that hill above, for some people that will work, right?
Yep.
And we just need to work in close connection with MWA and DCR, because when we start adapting the trail to meet this criteria, I want to make sure that it's their primary purpose for this access road is to take care of the infrastructure and maintain the quality of the water. So we want to make sure whatever we're adding isn't preventing them from doing their job or creating a difficult situation. The only thing I can imagine in the winter is, when they're doing snow plowing and stuff of that trail, making sure the structures that we're putting up are not going to impede the snow plow. And then it also creates an additional maintenance requirement. If you're adding poles and posts to the side of the road, they will not be able to be maintained with a mower, for example. You might need to get in there with a weed whacker. But I think the Trails Committee would certainly be open to putting that maintenance on their schedule to make that work. So it's not additional work for MWA.
Right. I guess, one thing we might want to consider is that when we were there, as you're headed into the trail, as you're headed away from the beginning of the trail and in, I think we were thinking about putting these rails on the right-hand side, but we might want to put them on the left-hand side, because another thing that we were talking about today was what they call shorelining. So someone who's using a cane, they can actually walk that road with the cane. And what they do is that they are waving the cane between the road and the grass. And, that would work if they're walking on the left. That would work the entire paved section of the trail. Whereas if you're walking on the right, there are roads that go off and that would lead someone doing that astray.
That's right. And also on the right, Will, is the fire hydrant that might get in the way.
Yeah.
And there is the fencing for the riser shaft. It comes right up on the road.
Right.
On the
So
edge of the road. So that might be an impediment
for them. Right. But
I'm
I think we can make it work.
I'm curious though, in your world, when you're talking about that, because you say put it on the left, but then, it's a path, and I don't know if we need to concern ourselves with that, but you know how you usually walk on the right, and then you have kind of a flow and people walk on the right and then they turn around and walk on the right. And so are we messing up traffic flow?
Well, it's not actually a path. It's a road that's used by big heavy trucks. So,
It's a
I
path
think
in
that
our world.
it says a path in your world, but in the world of DPW,
Yeah.
it's not a path, it's a road. And, on
So
roads, you walk on the left.
Okay, to your point, then it might be safer for people to walk on the left if there's going to be a truck coming down. That's actually a good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding getting back to the making it the slip proof, or the trail part of the trail, there are some ADA plates that are like, you can lay over the ground, and then they kind of become slip proof. You get, I mean, steel, made of steel.
Would this be for instead of paving, you're thinking, or?
Yeah, instead of paving, that will be cheaper, right?
Could be.
So what is it again, Sati?
It's a steel plate, wide and long steel plate. I don't know, I cannot paste any in the chat. I'm not able to do that, but I could have pasted link just for you to see.
Can you
So
email it?
I can email it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I can pull it up.
We also discussed where to put benches. I think, with regards to benches, we probably have more room on the right-hand side of the road for benches instead of for the left.
That's
And
a
there
good
was
idea.
some discussion about how much, we have to be careful about how much firm ground there is around the bench for someone with a wheelchair to use.
Yeah, and we also have to concern ourselves with when we install our double pedestal signs.
Yep.
Are they going directly into the ground or do they need concrete base? I would like
Yep.
to try to avoid concrete base, but I want to make sure the surface is flat and accessible. So we'll have to figure that out. And he does within this report, if I scroll down, he talks about the surfaces, the stone dust, the concrete, the asphalt, and some pros and cons for each, which is very helpful.
Right.
We should look at this and see if there's anything we need in addition to, and this might be a good dovetail into the meeting we had earlier today and the potential for a grant, because this report could help us with that. So let me just scroll down. So here he
Let,
talks about the signage. Yes.
let me ask just a couple of questions. The fencing that we had put in, that is now in, were those poles driven into the ground or were they actually footed with concrete?
They were probably footed with concrete. Would
Okay.
be my guess. Yeah.
And then the other question would be the big untouchable thing that we don't want to talk to anybody about, but the concrete air tower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. What about it?
We don't have to do anything with it, right?
No, we don't, but I do advise we put a sign up that says stay away. You're being recorded. Yeah.
Better government through lying. Okay, I like it.
No, it's not lying, because there's actually another side of MWA that does have video surveillance. And we put up signs that said, no trespassing, video surveillance in use. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
so it's a possibility. Okay, so that's those two things. Let's move on quickly. So we have the ADA, and since we're talking, the SPAC meeting update is next, so that's good. So Sati, SPAC had a meeting. Actually, Will, why don't you summarize it? You do it best. About what the meeting was about, and I can talk about the next steps that
Okay.
came out of that.
We had a 2-hour meeting, and the first hour we had a representative from the Mass Commission for the Blind named Ali Bull, and she was kind enough to actually come out in person. And we talked about signage for the blind. We talked about accommodations for visually impaired people. We were talking about whether or not there were any apps or any type of technology that would be could help. I would say that in reality there didn't sound like there was a lot of technology that we could necessarily latch onto at this time. Except maybe QR codes. That's about the one technology that people agree can work. And there was another app called OKO, which is useful for people with visual impairments for crossing streets that have a street crossing electronic sign. So that was the first meeting, and then the second meeting was with Jeff Dugan of the Massachusetts Office on Disability. And Jeff actually has already sent me a bunch of emails, which I'm going to distribute tomorrow, which with regards to various regulations and various guides, like the Forest Service guide for trails. And so we were talking about that. We were also talking about how currently the Massachusetts regulations don't really make a distinction between ADA compliant paths and trails. So that's kind of an open area. And then there's also there's been a big update with respect to public routes public sidewalks and such. There's been a big update on the regulations just in the past month or two that is going to come into effect, and that we're going to have to take a look at. So very useful, and Jeff Dugan and Ali both would be more than willing to assist us more in the future as we go forward.
I'm trying to locate the email so I can send it to Sati. Sati, I just sent you the email for Ali, so you'd have her contact information. You would have her full name and her title and the office that she represents. I want that, if you don't mind, represented in the minutes. And Will, I'm trying to locate.
I'll send Sati the emails.
Yeah, thank you. And just grab his name, office, and title. That would be great for the minutes. Thank you. Yeah, so it was a really good meeting. And I think we got a lot out of both. And I think one takeaway was Mass Audubon does a really good job about accessible trails and really trying to expand the user group. So we should visit Mass Audubon. I think the Broadmoor maybe is an example of one that has a good trail system that we could check out and see what we could incorporate into our trail system. So I think that was one takeaway that I had. And then secondly was the Jeff had talked about there's a grant process, a municipal ADA grant that is called a Municipal Americans with Disability Act grant that is available every year. The next one is the application deadline is September 15th. So, and it sounds like, based on the information I have here, that some of our things, if we needed paving and if we needed additional funds for some of our ADA work, we might be able to apply for it. But Mark Purple is the ADA coordinator for the town. So after the meeting, I popped into his office just to give him a heads up and see if this was something we could pursue. And he said the town of Southborough had applied to a couple of these in the past and not been successful. So it is a very competitive process. And we don't want to compete against each other. So it might be that the town's needs. He also referenced the plan. He said, does the current ADA plan have trails, ADA trails, as a priority? So that would be something. Will, do you have time to poke around the ADA plan and see how trails or open space or recreation space is represented in that plan to see if it is listed as a priority because that's going to be a go, no go.
When you say whose plan are we talking about?
Our ADA self-evaluation that the consultant did for us in 2021. Would you have time to poke around that plan to see how recreation and open spaces are represented currently?
I will poke around, but I to tell you the truth, I don't think that they were addressed at all.
If that's the case, then we may not be in a good position to apply for a grant for that because it's not been listed as a priority in the town. Now, something Jeff mentioned that there is money for if the town wanted to add addendums and update their plan to include some of this stuff, then you can go after it in the future. That might be what we could ask SPAC to, kind of do. But if it's not, then I think we might not be able to but I did tell Mark, I said, well, we'll put together if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If the town has a different priority for this year, that's fine. We just thought we'd check. And so I'll send him the idea and he can give us the feedback on what he thinks.
Well, I understand what you just said. Tell you the truth, I doubt if they would look at our self-evaluation to cross-check how much we mentioned trails and such.
Well, I do believe it is a requirement of the municipal grant to have certain things in place. Like your town has to have a self-evaluation. Your town has to have an ADA coordinator appointed. So there are some things that they point to that are required.
And we have those.
Right, we do.
So why would we disqualify ourselves with regards that that our self-evaluation didn't mention certain things?
That's just what that's how Mark presented it. So I wanted to
Well, I understand. I understand that point, but on the other hand, I would say that we can certainly say with complete honesty that we are very engaged in trying to improve the accessibility of the town, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we do have a self-evaluation. We do have a committee. We do have an ADA coordinator, and we
So
are
I found the plan. I'm going to do a search for trails, the word.
okay. Good luck with that one.
Oh, one. Oh, town forest and terrain trails. Oh. Active passive recreation, breakneck hill, town forest, terrain trails, Chestnut Hill, town common triangle. Why would those be the only ones listed? So strange. Huh. Let's see. Forest, conservation. These properties are either landlocked, have no improvements, and serve solely as wildlife habitat. Oh, they even have Liberty Estates Field. Wow. Oh,
Well, then then I stand corrected.
they don't
Sounds
have
like
they don't have the Sudbury Reservoir Trail. Oh, should the town initiate formal improvements to this property to enhance overall site accessibility and usage, then compliant accessible parking, signage, and limited accessible routes of travel would need to be improved. No action. But this is for community. That's Breakneck Hill. Sorry. Okay.
yeah, but I'd say bingo, right? Wouldn't you?
Well, but it's not. It's literally the town forest, Breakneck Hill. That's it.
Yeah, but we are indeed keeping that in mind. We're mentioning it.
What a big mess.
Why is it such a big mess?
Well, they don't talk about any of the other trails in town. Oh, okay. But there is quite a bit in here about trails, so we could probably squeeze in there. Interesting.
We're gonna squeeze in, okay.
We were completely overlooked. Well, that's okay. Um, yeah, so okay. So it might not work this time, but we'll see. I'll put it out to Tim. But I guess the idea is we need to talk as a committee about what other things we'd be doing with that money. Right. So it's a quick turnaround, 9/15, September 15th. I don't know if we can do it.
That's a what application is that?
This
CPA?
is right. Right. Which one, Kat? You're on number 3 right now. It's the Municipal Americans with Disabilities Act Improvement Grant Program for the state of Massachusetts.
American.
So I did call DPW, the new superintendent, and left a message, but I wasn't able to connect with him, but he did call back today. Because the thing is, if we do need that section paved, the parking, it might be something that it's a very small section. It might be something that DPW would be willing to do as additional in-kind support for the project. Right. So if I talk to the new superintendent, which his name escapes me, it might be Bill. And he says, yes, we can work that into the budget, then we might not need to go after this money. And we can focus our, because what the other improvements might not qualify, we might not have enough to generate a grant. Does that make sense?
How much money would we need?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. We'd have to do some research. We'd have to figure it out. And I'm thinking if we wanted to prioritize our time and effort, we could continue on the path we're currently on with the money we have and the 2 additional funding applications we're going for, the community, the community engineering core and the CPA. Just focus on that for this year. If we come around next year, we can really prepare for if we need additional funding for ADA. We can start earlier and then work with Mark and the town on what we could put together for a proposal instead of trying to cram it in this year. I'm talking myself out of doing it because I think DPW may be open to, helping us. make the surface more appropriate for accessibility for parking. Does that make sense, Will? You look
Yeah,
concerned.
well, I mean, the other problem here is that, we have there's such limited time.
Yeah,
Right.
it is limited time, and we're trying to do 2 other applications at the same time, and I forget that we're just humans.
Well, two of us are.
We're all human.
Two of us are. Let's not let's not sell
Yeah,
ourselves
yeah.
short there, Kat.
Okay. Okay, so let me ask, I'll ask DPW if there's an opportunity for them to help us with the paving and see what we can do. It might be, we have to do the reporting for the Mass Trails grant anyway. So, I've got to get payroll records and their contribution to see where it adds up for the project. And if we haven't quite met our in-kind support, our matching support, this additional contribution could help us get to that matching contribution for the Mass Trails grant. Make sense?
I'm sorry, no.
So with our current project, Mass Trails grant, right? That's what the ADA parking was. It was already in-kind support from DPW. We're
Yeah.
using it as matching funds for our grant, Mass Trails grant. Okay, so if we haven't met our $33,000, which is what we said would be our match, because DPW was so efficient, and they only came in at say 15, not 22, and we needed more in-kind support, this might be one way to do that. Having them pave.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's that, the SPAC meeting, and we're good now. Okay. So the next up is the phase 2. So the funding applications for phase 2. So this is related to the engineering services, right? So I ran out of time with a number of outside competing priorities to circulate to the committee. So I sent in the application and copied everyone. Did you have a moment to look at it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any feedback?
It looks good.
Will, did you take a look?
Yeah, very briefly. I don't have any feedback. I mean, I'm sure that that what you've put is good.
Okay. So we heard back from them, from Leah. And she said,
Later this week, she'll come back to us.
yes. And they wrote back what they appreciated the thorough application. They're gonna include it in next week's review meeting. They did have a question about if our application for the Community Preservation Fund or Mass Trails Grant included future engineering consulting costs. We just want to ensure that we're not taking business away from local consultants if you do end up securing funding to hire a local consultant to take on this work. So the way I explained it was that our initial budget did have some engineering services, but because of the information we received, it wasn't enough to cover the services. So also, depending on the scope of services that CE Core provides, we may still need to contract with a local engineering firm. So I just kind of explained it that way. And she said, great, we'll get back to you late next week or early the following week. So, so fingers crossed, we'll see how that goes. And then what I'll need to do is communicate. And again, this is a maybe, it might work if the timing works, right? I want to stop and say something though, and I want to give a big shout out to Sati. Thank you very much for finding this opportunity, Sati, because
Oh, yes, absolutely.
after when I realized that we had underestimated the funding for engineering services, and that I wasn't really sure how we were going to make this work, right? And I think, I'd kind of been, I don't know, we put a lot of work into what we've done so far, and I felt like this was a roadblock. I wasn't quite sure how we're going to get around. And then Sati comes up with this like dream of an opportunity for the trails, committee to submit. And so I really appreciate that. And it it's just one of those moments where, you know, you've hit a wall, but you have a team member that's come up and said, no, don't worry, we're going to get there. And here's an opportunity for you. So it was just really, a really, I'm very grateful for you for pulling that together, Sati, and for following through. So it really was very important for the committee. So thank you.
Yeah,
Lati, when I said that there were 2 humans here, I wasn't including you. So you're
not
beyond,
including,
above and beyond,
we are
above
not
and beyond.
including cat. We are not including cat. She's beyond that.
I don't know.
No.
All right, so
So
there's only one human here, me.
no, you are no,
No, no, no.
you are always there. I mean that. And,
Yeah.
so
So
you know,
thank
but overall the committee we are all.
Well, it reminds me, it does take a village, you know, it is never just one or two, it's a group, and your contributions are really valuable to the committee. So thank you, Sati. Even if we don't get it, it was an opportunity that we could go after, and it was really good. So thanks.
Yeah, you just reminded me that I didn't ask after Casey's new child. He has a new son.
Who?
Casey is the building inspector. He was there. He's the new building inspector, and he has a new son.
I wish I had known that. I would have said thank you so much. They did the building inspection within 2 days of our fence for our fence. I should have said thank you, and I'm Kat, by the way.
Well, yeah, he was there, but he's just had a new addition to the family, a son.
Oh, how exciting.
His next oldest is like 14 years older, so
Oh, okay.
this is a new project.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's good.
Did you receive the email? Did you see the email that I sent just now? I mean,
Oh, the image.
yeah, image.
Yes. So let's pull that up, because that came up today, that topic of what that piece that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
Sati sent over these strips. Can you see my
Okay.
screen? I should be showing
Not yet. Yeah. Not
Oh,
yet.
by
Yeah.
the way, I just sent you the
contact information.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so this ADA plate, it's like a rumple strip, so it's supposed to tell. So we did talk about this today, and they're meant to be at crosswalks and things like that to indicate there is going to be a change in like it could be oncoming traffic and stuff.
Mhm.
So
this
might
sounds a lot like what we were talking about today in the meeting with
Yeah. Yeah, so Sati had sent over this. Yeah, so this would be good to use at crosswalks and entryways where they're, you know, they're going to go into the oncoming traffic and stuff. So it might be something we have to use at our crosswalks, the crosswalk that we're hoping to put in.
Right.
But thank you for sending that over. Next up is the CPA application, which is due in 2 days.
Right.
And we had come up with a really nice name. So the Peninsula Trail Engineering Services Bridging the Gap. That was just brilliant, people. So this is due on the 31st, and the 31st is Thursday. So what I'd like to spend the next few minutes is going through. I think we looked at the application. Let's just kind of like not wordsmith, but just come up with some high level ideas for some of these, so that when I'm pulling together the information, we can make sure that we're all kind of in agreement on what we're trying to hit here. And I think that we can use the funding application that we just sent in to Community Engineering Corps for some of this, right? So I think that will I stopped sharing, right? I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's you know, some of it will have been, we can reuse some of it, is what I guess I'm trying to say. I can't find where I just had it. I apologize. Give me a second to work it out. Did I close it? Oh. Yes, there it is. All right. Okay. Let me share screens. Oh, and actually, Isabella sent over some infographics that we were supposed to talk about for signage. So remind me to do that at the end. Okay, are we seeing the application now? I hope.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so what are the goals of the proposed project? So this is we're, thinking about submitting the conservation preservation application in case we don't get in case our CE core application goes through. So what are the goals for the proposed project? Who will benefit and why? So I think we have, what are the negative impacts? Let's see, we have some information already listed here. So I think the goal for the project, I guess what I'm getting hung up is we presented to the CPA project already, and they provided money for phase 1, which was the fencing and the ADA parking, and to go after a Mass Trails grant. And we did all of that. And we have already received some approval to use some of the funds for phase 2, the expanded scope, which was written into the first project in a broad way because we didn't have phase 2 defined. So now we have more of phase 2 defined. And so our goal, and I want to say, how do you guys feel about because I'm thinking back to the conversation of Andrew Mills when he said, well, you're just going to come back and ask for more money. I was like, I will never come back and ask for any more money because this process has been very long. But we are here asking for more money. So I'm sensitive to that conversation, which most of the committee members have turned over since then, with some exception. So what is our goal for this project? This is for engineering services. So is the goal specific to?
Well, it's to complete the engineering services in pursuit of this larger goal of building the trail, right? It's a necessary building block or a necessary step along the way.
I'm going to reference phase 2 of the project. Yeah, because I want to be. Because I guess I want to be careful about how we're presenting that, we were well, essentially we didn't get the full Mass Trails grant to be able to fund the full second project anyway. That's one shortfall. I'm just trying to see how to frame it without being like, oh, we underestimated engineering services. Like, I don't want to have to say it over and over again. Is it okay to say that? What
You mean we underestimated what we needed for engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's essentially, we were quoted something for engineering services, which didn't quite meet our needs, and for a number of reasons. One, it was, kind of a back of the envelope. Hey, we're doing this project. We're going to put in a footbridge and a boardwalk. What would you estimate the engineering costs to be? And it wasn't close.
Basically, you can write that to augment the shortfall in the funding for engineering design. We don't say that. I mean, you don't have to say that we underestimated or overestimated, nothing like that. It's just a shortfall.
Let's blame somebody else. Let's say that we were given estimates that proved not to be correct.
Well, I want to be careful about that because we didn't technically receive an official estimate, right? So we want to not blame anybody. It was more of a quick and dirty. This is, we have a grant application. I'm trying to put a line item in for something that we haven't really discussed yet. And so in good faith, a number was provided. In good faith, a description was provided, and neither satisfied the the project's requirements. So,
That's not such a bad way of saying it, right?
yeah. So I'll be careful. I just don't want to get into I get into any kind of, I don't want to confuse the group. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like I just want to be
Yeah.
clear, but not overly clear that.
What about the benefits and success can be measured?
Yeah, so what's define how the project meets CPA requirements. Please refer to allowable use chart on page 5. So on page 5, how does it meet requirements? So we were using open space and recreation. So I think actually, you know what I'll do is similar to our last CPA application. I can refer to some of that information because that's not going to change. Let me just kind of poke around. Are you guys seeing my folder structure right now?
Yes.
Okay, well, don't look. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is last year's or 2020's, 2021. So what did we say here? Goals. Okay, so the goals aren't going to be like, we can incorporate some of these goals. The overall project has goals, but this specific application, the goal is to bridge the gap for funding. I think does that make
Yeah.
sense to you guys? Okay, so I don't want to get too bogged down in these goals are correct, but this other goal is specific. Who would benefit and how successful will be eligibility. Define how the project meets. So here we say the project meets 4 of the 6 CPA criteria for recreation projects outlined in the plan. Support multiple recreational uses, serve a significant number of residents, expand the range of recreation opportunities, recreation
No,
goals.
we don't have to write all this. We can always refer to this and then say fully realize the goals as mentioned in.
Well, I don't want to like let them know that I completely copied from the last application, and then they'll go back and see how much we copied, although they're probably listening now and they'll know because I just said it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I try to simplify. And
No, because we
Um,
already said that there's a shortfall, so we see that we will not be able to realize the full goals. So that is a an addendum to this.
okay. And this what I've have highlighted here will also apply. So although this project is categorized as recreational project, also meets open space goals. Okay, and providing a passive recreation, passive reaction. There's a
should
typo.
we also say that we're bridging our gap so that we complete this link in the overall Burroughs Loop Trail.
Yes, it is ultimately that. No,
I mean, my heart goes out to the thousands of hikers who have gotten to this portion of the trail and then died waiting for the completion of it.
so something is happening where I can't find it's it's not in one of these. Gone. Here it is. Okay. I'm gonna close everything except for these things.
Yeah.
I can't find it. Okay. Okay, so we'll add that piece. All right, so eligibility defined, that's what we were just talking about. Historic, if this historic project is not community need, why is this project needed? Does it address needs identified in the existing town plans? That's a yes and a yes. The open space plan, we can reference the master plan, we can reference the ADA plan, we can sort of reference. Yes, I think we can reference those 3 plans. Anything else you think of?
Well, regional plans.
Give me some regional plans.
Well, isn't there a plan for the overall Burroughs Loop Trail, or are we
Oh,
just
good
all
point.
making
No, the
it up?
Burroughs Loop feasibility, our requirement. Yep, Burroughs Loop commitment
Okay.
feasibility study. We pointed to that last time too. Yep. That's good.
Okay. We're bridging the gap.
What does it address identified existing town plans? So we have to be careful about that piece. But we did commit to, so that's a good point. Commit to. Okay, what is the nature and level of support and or opposition okay, so this is where we can reference all the stuff we've done. And then I guess, I want to be careful about, listing, dollar numbers, but we can say, we received, a Mass Trails grant, so there's support from the state there. And we received ARPA funding. So that's from the ARPA. See, I already ran out of space. I don't even know how they think this is going to work for an application. ARPA funding, and then also so the ARPA funding we were recommended from the ARPA committee, and the select board had to vote. So there is that type of support. What is the total budget for the project, and how will CPA funds be spent? All items of expenditure must be clearly identified and backed up documentation. Distinguish between hard and soft costs. Depending on your project, more than one estimate may be required. Okay, so this is where we have 3 estimates, right? Engineering estimates. So we, as the committee, need to determine how much we're going to be asking for a CPA based on these estimates, right? And our estimates ranged from 80 to 150,000, right? So let's brainstorm something, because are we only asking for money for engineering, or see, if we ask for anything else, we're going to need quotes for it, and we don't have that yet. Because the thing, if DPW can't do the paving, we could put some of that in here, right? If we needed to do some ADA enhancements, we just would need quotes for that. Do you see where I'm going with my challenge?
Quotes for what
Paving.
Particularly? For
If
paving?
DPW can't do the paving, then we need to quotes for the paving. So we need to add that in, and paint stripes and things like that to improve the ADA parking.
Well, I think DPW can do it, because I know that they have done similar things where they just went ahead and fixed things, and they included it elsewhere.
Right.
I guess the question would be, if they will do it, then do we put them, or do we try and recover any costs in this grant request?
Well, it wouldn't be recovering costs. If they can do it, then we're just going to add that on to the Mass Trails grant as in-kind support, right? So it's just going to make it look like our contribution we're meeting our contribution, our match contribution, right?
Okay.
One aspect is, we've talked a lot about ADA signs and Bluetooth and this, that, and the other. We don't have quotes for anything that we need to add to the signage, but is there anything, back of the envelope that we can, like, ways that we want to improve the ADA that we haven't budgeted for yet, like an app that would, the QR codes and the audio and all of that, like adding a QR code is easy, but the audio piece, like, how are we going to do the audio? Who's going to put that together? Do we hire a vendor for that?
Well, one thing that they were talking about today, that Ali was talking about, was essentially having your phone grab the text and then do a screen read of it.
Yep.
So that just, all that requires is just a normal sign with a lot of text on it.
Okay. So
there's that. The other possibility, which would work even on the dreaded Android phone, would be the QR code, which would then pull up a web page that you could then read with your screen reader.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would stay away from Bluetooth, because that needs electricity and that gets complicated. And
just keep it engineering services and not worry about. I was just thinking, like, is there anything that we should be forward thinking?
I don't think we know enough to forward think in this area, and based on
in 2 days we're not going to get one.
And based on the stuff that we got from Ali, she didn't have any off the shelf, hey, you should look at this solution kind of thing.
Okay. And then that's fine. I think that's a good way of just keeping this very straightforward. And then what we'll do is as we move through this project, if we see that we need money for this, that, and the other, we can go after the ADA grant next year and we'll just put that in the bucket.
Right.
We'll be further down the project and be able to do it. In 2 days, we can't. Okay, great. So the budget I'll put in here, somewhere between 80 and 100. I might do an average of the quotes, and use some contingency or something. Does that sound like a plan for getting a number?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the more money they give us, the better, right?
Well, we have to justify it, right? And remember, we're going to go to
And
town
we have
meeting.
2 quotes now, so
3.
3, okay.
Yep. So we have to go to town meeting and they have to approve it. So we have to be sensitive in what we're asking and back it up with proof. So I'll put some number in there. That's a combo of the 3 in an average kind of format and with some contingency on stuff that we don't know. Does that sound like a plan? But do we think like it might be 110 or 100, you know what I mean? Like, how are you guys with that number? I think our quotes came in at 80, 90, and 150. Something like that. So what's our magic number that we're going to ask for?
What about the middle bear number?
Yeah, that's the.
Do we want to
Right.
be under 100? I'm just concerned that just like with everything else, there's something unhidden under a rock that we haven't thought of that we
Hey.
really need to, because we haven't been able to dive into those quotes and really get in there. So, oh, you need this and that. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure we're being generous enough and not too restrictive, but I want to be conservative all at the same time. So what's our number? Is it 105, 110? Are we comfortable with that number or do we want to try to
What's the maximum one? That's the 160, right?
Hmm?
What's the maximum?
It
The
was like 150.
150.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was with a huge contingency though.
So yeah, 110 or maybe.
Yeah,
Something
sounds
in
good.
that ballpark. How
Yeah.
do you feel about that, Will?
No, I think that's good. I mean, yeah, I think that's good. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, if anybody looks at this carefully and says, "Well, what's your justification?" We probably don't have a good answer. But
Oh, yes, we do. 80, 90, 150.
okay, then 100. Well, 80, 90, and 150 is 170 plus 150 is 220. 220. So 110 is great.
Right?
Yeah,
It's kind of an average.
320. 110's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So something in that ballpark. I'll do some math and make sure that we have some documentation around why we came up with that number. And go from there. Because this will be our application we submit. It will go through a few rounds of committee feedback and we may need to tweak it along the way and we may need to get a little more information. So that's fair. So we'll do something around 110. It might
Yeah.
fluctuate between 110 and 120.
According to Google's calculator, the average of those 3 numbers is 106.666 thousand. So 110 looks good.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay,
because what Kat is saying is that we do not, if something comes up, that we didn't anticipate, then it will be.
right.
So I think that's 110.
We need a buffer. Yeah,
Yeah.
just in case.
Okay, then add in 20%.
Yeah, I forget what our contingency was. It's either 5 or 10%. With the other one. Okay, great. So additional funding sources. Oh, this is where 1, 2, 3, 4 activities raise monetary just list sources. What additional funding sources are available, committed, or under consideration, including commitment letters, in-kind donations, volunteer hours?
Wow.
Describe any other attempts to secure funding. So we have some funding sources. So I don't know what we should put here because technically our funding sources are not covering engineering services, which is why we're in the situation, right? So what we could say here is we have other funding sources for other project components, but there's a shortfall, right? And they don't cover engineering costs per our quotes. So that's why we're here. So other project components are being funded by X, Y, and Z, ARPA, Mass Trail, CPA, right? And I think we keep it pretty simple here, not go into a lot of detail until asked. And I am not 100% comfortable adding the CE core application here because we don't know if that's going to pan out or not. It's a hypothetical.
Okay.
Are you guys comfortable if we're not including that because it's not committed? I mean, it is under consideration, but is it a funding source?
No, not yet.
No. Yeah. So I think if we did a round two, if something comes up, then we can add it, but I don't see it being something that we here. Any other thoughts on that?
No, it sounds reasonable.
Okay. Timeline by the end of 2024. That's what we're putting. That's good. We've talked about that. We did that with the other one too. Who will be responsible? All right. So we've got this. We have the same question answered. And what relevant experience, who else will be involved? So we've got Tim Davis and Recreation Commission involved. That's good.
DPW is involved.
DPW is involved, MWA, DCR, but they're more like just kind of not really involved. They're just like property owners that are being updated. So we'll also describe here that we have, successfully managed the project to date, which we had an install of a fence and a gate. So that went well. And so that's some of our history as well. Ongoing maintenance is required. Who will be responsible and how will it be funded? So that doesn't really apply here if we're looking for engineering services, right? We're not even looking for that. Like, we're not even talking about the bridge install and the boardwalk necessarily. We're actually just looking for engineering services.
That's the post implementation. That is not relevant here.
Okay. So there really isn't any maintenance. I mean, the maintenance is of the boardwalk and bridge. And I guess we could just say that the Trails Committee is responsible for it. And that's that, whatever comes up, we'll find sources to pay for it. Brief description of the project to be printed as project summary in the warrant article. So this is where it's very specific language that we'll draft that will just be basically the committee's seeking, support to cover engineering services that will go into a public bid. We outlined that in the CE core application, so we can use some of the same language here. I also want to be very specific with CPA that if this does go to town warrant, I want the title that we have here represented there. Last time this application we went in, our title was changed to DCR Trail or some obscure thing that didn't link to what we really want it to be. So this is my preferred and our preferred name of proposal. We had the same issue happen with the Mass Trails grant. They made up their own name after they asked us to give 5 words, and we gave them 5 words and then they changed it. So, I mean, we come up with, we're being asked to come up with specific, and we work on it. So I would like it to be represented as we've highlighted it. Okay, so further documentation that you have control over the site, such as a purchase and sale, option to deed, letters of support from relevant town entities, feasibility reports, zoning compliance. So let's talk about this further documentation. When we did our first CPA application for the signage and stuff, we had Historical Recreation Commission, we had several SPAC, I think 88 at that time had written some letters of support. We don't have letters of support for this application.
Well, we could certainly get one from, I know somebody on the ADA or the SPAC. We could get one from there.
I want to think about it for a second, because if I don't know. I don't know that we need to add additional letters. I'm thinking for this project in specifically, we can reference the letters of support that we've received in the past for this project, right?
Just copy them in. Yeah.
Well, I want to be careful about too much information, right? So we sent those 22 letters with our CE core application, and it turned out to be a 45-page application because of that. I think we can reference that we got 22 letters of support for the Mass Trails grant here. We got XX number of letters of support for the petition that just demonstrates the community support. We got XX number of letters of support from our last CPA application, and we're happy to provide that information upon request, rather than send them 100 pages of letters of support, right? I think they might appreciate that, keeping it short and succinct, because I don't know if you know this, but I can be long-winded or drawn out or go into too much detail.
Hush your mouth.
So that might be one way to approach it. What do you guys think?
That would be fine, as long as we get the point across. That's great.
Yeah. And we'll say available upon request so that they can request if they want to. Feasibility reports, renderings, or other relevant studies. The first time we did this, we included the Burroughs Loop feasibility study. We could reference that in the form of a link.
Reference, yeah.
Okay. Zoning compliance, evidence that the project does not violate any zoning laws or other laws or regulations.
Well, we
don't
that's
have
by
evidence.
reference as well, right?
Well, we don't have evidence that it doesn't violate, but we've already been in touch with the Framingham Conservation Committee and the Commission and the Southborough Commission. So we've been working with these conservation commissions for years on this. They've agreed in theory to the project, and we would continue working with them to make sure that we're within the state and local bylaws that we're complying with. Right.
And we're basically including them at every step along the way.
Yes. And this is for engineering services. So we have to work within those commissions anyway, in order to get the permits that we need, the NOIs and stuff. If a non-town government entity is the applicant, please list contact information of all relevant contacts. That's not us. Okay. Other information, any additional information that might be beneficial as representative from the project will be required to present. Okay. Application requirements after CPC recommends project for town. The project, the MOU, assistant fielding questions. Okay, this is all standard stuff. All right. So it's really just going to be about putting together the data, which should not be, I say that now, but it shouldn't be that big of a lift. Today is the 29th, tomorrow's the 30th. I can work on this a little bit tonight, but mostly tomorrow night. So can I ship it off to you guys? It might be midnight when you get it, so I don't expect you to look at it. But this is due on the 31st, and the 31st ends at midnight, 11:59 p.m. So I believe that's when we have until to submit it. So would you guys have any time on either early Thursday morning or during the day Thursday to give any feedback on the application, so I could finalize it Thursday evening, even if you did it after work at 5 o'clock and got me comments by 6 o'clock on Thursday? Would that work with any of your schedules?
That would be fine. And I volunteer to fly to Hawaii to submit this.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm just remembering the year that I submitted it. I remember I had yeah, it was just a big push to get it all buttoned up. But anyway, it's a little bit different. Having gone through it one time, it makes it a little bit easier to understand how to go through it the second time. So I think it's going to be a little more streamlined, and we can be a little more straightforward. I am going to take this application out of its PDF form, export it into a Word document to make it easier to work with. As I represented, the more text you put in it, the smaller it gets, and it's just kind of, it doesn't yield itself to being very helpful in that way. And yeah, so I guess for pictures though, I should include some pictures, and I guess we could use something similar. So we're doing engineering services for a bridge and boardwalk. we have pictures already. I guess I could reuse some of those to just represent the project. And then last year we had this lovely image here, which I don't want to reuse, although it is kind of become the image for this trail. I think we have a couple of new images if we want to think real quick about what we want to represent this part of the trail. If you guys would appease me. Hang on, because we took some pictures and got some permission. Okay, here. So yeah, I don't know. Here. Okay, are you seeing the screen?
Not yet.
Oh, because I didn't share. It's a test. Okay, are you seeing pictures now?
Oh, those are, yes, we do. Those are gorgeous pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the one, there's one like from the second row or first row that's second from the left.
Left. This one? Is this the first row or is this the first row?
Well, there's with the that handsome guy walking with the guy in the wheelchair.
Yeah, like this one.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, the handsomeness of that guy with the pack and everything. My God.
But this a good point about this thing is it represents what we are trying to do for the trail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of ADA.
Yeah, and I'm torn between that one, which I really love this picture. And I asked Mike and I asked Will and I asked Bill Signs if we could use their pictures, and they said yes, and Jim too. I like this picture because it represents different mobility challenges, right?
That too.
So
Yeah.
either one of those you're comfortable with.
I think this is good. The second one, this one, we just saw
And
that.
even though it doesn't represent the bridge or the boardwalk, we really don't have a real picture to represent that yet, because that doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay.
I'll be glad to fly to the future and come back.
This is where we want to be. That's what the thing is.
Yeah. Okie doke. So that's been very helpful. Thank you both. Any other comments or questions about the application or next steps? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. So I think that does it. I needed just to show us one more thing.
Bella's pictures.
Yes. She sent. Here's my idea for creative trail signage. I am halfway done with the pictures, but didn't want to get too far until I had feedback on the design. I used design from Canva I thought read well, but am open to different designs. Let me know what you think. Okay, let me pull it up. Oh boy, this is exciting. Okay, I'm sharing again. Okay, look at this. So she created I like it.
Yeah, that's
Go
nice.
Bella, look at that.
Pretty good, yeah.
So she's highlighting, oh my goodness, trees on our trails, right? So the eastern white pine is largest conifer natives in the Massachusetts, growing up 100 to 150 human use. These trails, let me see if you can see, it's kind of small. These trails have been important in the Northeast timber industry for its lightweight color, and indigenous groups have used the trees as teas, soup thickeners, and its antiseptic and medicinal value. Keystone species, eastern white pines are essential for wildlife. Nice presence in town. White pines can be found all over Southborough trails. They range from habitat. I love it. Now, what is this interesting picture here? Does this look like an aerial photo of a flooded? I'm curious about that.
White pines.
Right? Like, what is that?
This is. This looks like some.
It looks like
water.
it's muddy water with boats.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think this is a great start.
Yep.
And we can use this. This is wonderful. Now, as far as layout goes, this long layout might not work for a sign that's going to be more.
I'm kind of worried about the contrast or
Yeah, we can work on the coloring. We can,
yeah,
because
okay.
the logo isn't quite where we need it. So yeah, we certainly will, but I like the concept, and I think it's going to be more vertical, like a 3 feet long versus 3
Well,
feet,
actually, that brings up the
3 feet
well,
wide.
I guess we don't have to worry about the remember Jeff Dugan mentioned the new sign extension from the pole kind of thing. But this is not a sign that you are walking past.
Yes,
This
it is.
So I don't think we need to worry about the width of the sign here.
Well, it is going to be an interpretive sign on the trail,
Well,
but
is it
not an
on
ADA trail.
okay, but is it on the trail or is it facing, it's not facing one way or the other, it's facing perpendicular to the trail, isn't it?
Yes, I think well, it's going to be parallel. I think
So
parallel.
someone coming from either direction will be able to see the sign, not just the back of the sign.
Correct. It's
Okay.
it will be similar to the one we installed. Well, I guess the interpretive sign we installed at the town forest. It's basically, here, let me pull up this report. You see this sign? Can you see? Here, let me make it bigger.
Yeah.
You
It's
see this
on
guy?
the side of the trail. Yeah.
Yeah, this one with the big one post. Yeah, so it'll
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
be at an angle. Yeah.
So you don't have to worry. People are not going to walk next to the sign and try and go behind it. In other words,
No.
Okay, so
No.
good. I don't
Yeah,
think you
I
have to
think
worry about the width then.
I love it. I think she did a wonderful
Yeah.
job. Now, we'll
That
tweak
is a
the
nice job.
colors, and we may tweak some pictures, make sure we have the copyrights to use the pictures or purchase pictures if we have to. We're going to check out this muddy water thing and check out what that is. But this picture, well, I'm not sharing anymore. One of the pictures is of the trail. So that's really good. Anytime we can use pictures of the trail that are actual, that's really great. So this is wonderful. So this is going to help fulfill the Choate Fund grant obligations. So I'm really excited about it. And actually, here, let me share again, because where she has taken this picture here that I'm pointing to,
Hmm.
we may want to put the signage along that trail, because it's that's where the trees are, right? A big long stretch of them.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's the Aqueduct Trail, right?
Yeah, it's all of them, Sudbury, Aqueduct, and Burrows Loop. But this is one off of Route Northborough. It's near the pumping station. The Bolin, is it the Bolin pumping station is up there on Johnson Road or Old Northborough Road? I forget which one it is. Do you know where I'm talking about? Near 495.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. It's near 495. Right.
Okay, great. So that's wonderful. I'm gonna let her know that we super love it, and that we'll figure out how to kind of do the layout so it will work for a physical sign, but that's really wonderful. I'm glad. That's great. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good sign.
Yeah. Okie doke. So I think we're in good shape. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn at 8:52 p.m.?
And end the fun?
Yeah.
I move that we adjourn at 8:52 p.m.
Okay, and does someone want to second that?
I second it.
Okay, great. And so let's do a roll call vote. Will Warren,
Aye.
Tatiana Sharma,
Yes.
Pat McKee. Yes. Okay, so we adjourn at 8:52. Thank you all. I will send that application out tomorrow night, and we'll go from there. Fingers crossed that we're doing all the good stuff that we need to be doing.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.